Good morning to all the students. Today we are going to start the chapter Respiration in Plants. So, in your 10th standard, you have learnt respiration in plants with a basic experiment in just 1 or 2 pages. But here, under respiration in higher plants, in your 11th standard NCERT, this chapter you will learn it under the unit Plant Physiology, where you will have these many concepts involved in the respiration in higher plants. Once look at the key notes of the concepts that you have in this chapter. First, you have to know what is respiration, what is cellular respiration, and respiration types based on the respiratory substrates and based on whether it requires oxygen or not. You have 2 types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic. Based on the respiratory substrates, you have 3 types of respiration. We are going to discuss in detail. And what is cellular respiration? What is cellular energy? Types of respiration we have discussed just now. And then glycolysis, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, 2 types we will be discussing: lactic acid fermentation and alcoholic fermentation. Oxidative decarboxylation, Krebs cycle, ETA system, amphibolic pathway and respiratory quotient. These are the concepts we have. And in today's session, what are we going to learn from this chapter? From this chapter, we are going to learn in detail about what is respiration, what is cellular respiration, what is cellular energy, what are different types of respiration, and then we are going to learn glycolysis in detail. So, let us get started. First, what is respiration? Respiration. Is there any variation between respiration and breathing? Is there any variation? Yes, of course. Breathing means what, ma? Breathing is nothing but exchange of gases. Okay, breathing is exchange of gases. We do have nostrils and we breathe completely. We breathe, okay. But then plants, do they breathe? That is again a question. Then if they breathe, how they are breathing? Yes, plants do breathe through stomata and lenticels. Plants breathe through stomata and lenticels. Can you see? Stomata are present over the leaf. You have come across the stomata structures in your lower standards, right? So, opening and closing of stomata happens. When stomata opens, gaseous exchange takes place. Likewise, you have lenticels, which are open pores present on the stem. So, via stomata and lenticels, plants breathe. Okay. And then what is respiration? We have learned breathing is exchange of gases and plants also breathe via stomata and lenticels. Now, tell me what is respiration? Respiration is nothing but oxidation of organic molecules or biomolecules. Okay, oxidation of organic molecules or biomolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids. Okay, oxidation of macromolecules and producing energy is known as respiration. What is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is nothing but in a single cell, if you assume this as a cell, in a cell, after respiration, what is respiration? Oxidation of biomacromolecules. Oxidation of biomacromolecules inside a cell and producing of energy in the form of ATP is known as cellular energy. And ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, is addressed as cellular energy. This is addressed as what, ma? Cellular energy. Now, I hope you are clear with the terms, right? What is the difference between breathing and respiration? Breathing is exchange of gases, and in plants, plants do breathe via stomata and lenticels. Second is what, ma? Respiration, which is nothing but oxidation of biomacromolecules is known as respiration and release of energy. And then we have cellular respiration. In a single cell, oxidation of biomacromolecules and release of the cellular energy, that is ATP, is known as what? Cellular respiration. And ATP is addressed as what, ma? Cellular energy. You are clear with these terms, right? Now, we are moving on to the types of respiration in detail. Okay. Before moving to the types of respiration, let us take a plant cell. In a plant cell, what type of respiration happens? In an animal cell, what type of respiration happens? Okay. And what about a prokaryotic cell? Okay. So, yes, we have plant cell, animal cell, and prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell. Got it? So, here if you observe in a plant cell, we have plant cell is a eukaryotic cell, right? And in a plant cell we have cytoplasm, and where does the photosynthesis taking place? Inside the chloroplast. Inside the chloroplast photosynthesis occurs, right, ma? Which is a double membrane bound organelle. And plant cells also do have the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, mitochondria. So, we have chloroplast and mitochondria. In chloroplast, what happens, ma? Inside chloroplast, the end product of photosynthesis we have seen yesterday, glucose is formed. Okay, glucose is formed in chloroplast. This glucose, if it has to be stored in the chloroplast, glucose if it has to be stored inside the chloroplast, it will be stored in the form of starch. It will be stored in the form of starch. If it has to be transported, if it has to transport either into the cytoplasm or to any other cells, okay, where chloroplast is not present. Chloroplast will not be present in the root cells, chloroplast will not be present inside the stem cells. Okay, in a big tree, chloroplast is present only in the leaves. So, now the product of photosynthesis, which is glucose, have to pass through all the cells of the plant to produce energy. If it has to store, it will store in the form of starch inside the chloroplast itself. But if it has to be transported into the cytoplasm or to any other cells, it will be transported in the form of sucrose. It will be transported in the form of what, ma? In the form of sucrose. Got it, right? So, when it is formed in the form of this disaccharide sucrose, okay, and it reaches to the cell, any other cell accepting this, this once it is entering into the cell, this disaccharide will break into glucose and fructose. Okay, glucose will start the process of respiration. Okay, because it has to get oxidized and it has to produce the energy. So, first in plant cell, if we observe, ma, plant cell has chloroplast and mitochondria. Inside a chloroplast, in a mesophyll cell, if I have to suppose, inside chloroplast, glucose is formed at the end of photosynthesis, and if it has to be stored, it will be stored in the form of starch. If it has to be transported, it will be transported in the form of sucrose to any other cell. Sucrose, after landing into any other cell, it will be breaked into glucose and fructose. Okay? Glucose will begin the process of respiration. Got it till here? Now, what happens in an animal cell? Okay. So, animal cells will consume the food. Okay. They will consume the complex food and digest it into the simpler substances. So, the food molecules, when it is consumed, it has biomacromolecules like carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Once they break down, okay, once they break down, they will enter into the path of respiration. Respiration path both in the plant cell and animal cell is same, that is aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Got it. Now in a prokaryotic cell or any eukaryotic unicellular organisms. So all the unicellular organisms, be it a prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell, unicellular organisms, be it prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell, it conducts both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. It conducts both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Got it? And in any of the unicellular organisms, all the organelles might not be present. If you take excuse me, if you take a prokaryotic cell, be it aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration, everything occurs in the cytoplasm. Whereas in the eukaryotic cell, if it is unicellular eukaryote, you will have organelles like mitochondria and chloroplast if it is performing photosynthesis, and same like how it is happening in the animal cell or plant cell, it will happen in the unicellular eukaryotic organisms also. You have to remember here only one point, that in a prokaryotic cell, be it aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration, takes place inside the cytoplasm itself. Whereas in eukaryotes, it has the organelles and respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria if it is aerobic. Got it? So, this is how the respiration is operated in plant cell, animal cell and in eukaryotic, in unicellular eukaryotes and prokaryotes. This though you have to remember for sure, because this is a transition from photosynthesis to respiration. In photosynthesis we have prepared glucose, and in respiration we are producing the energy from glucose. So, here this point to be remembered for sure. So, this is how it is happening in plant cell, animal cell and unicellular prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now, we will move on to types of respiration. Okay. Types of respiration. We have two types of respirations. Classification is on the basis of two types. One is based on substrates, based on respiratory substrates, based on respiratory substrates. What are respiratory substrates? The biomolecules or biomacromolecules which are subjected to oxidation are known as respiratory substrates. And second classification is based on the presence or absence of oxygen, based on the presence or absence of oxygen. So, here if you see based on respiratory substrates, we have three types. One is known as floating respiration, floating respiration, sorry, two types we have. One is floating respiration, second is addressed as protoplasmic respiration, floating respiration and protoplasmic respiration. Floating respiration, where the respiratory substrate is, in floating respiration, respiratory substrate is either carbohydrates or lipids. Okay. In protoplasmic respiration, the respiratory substrate is proteins. Got it, ma? Now, based on the presence or absence of oxygen, we have two types of respiration. One is anaerobic and second is aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration is completely operated in the cytoplasm itself. Okay. Whereas aerobic respiration occurs first in the cytoplasm and then in mitochondria. So, here if you see first anaerobic respiration or aerobic respiration, one pathway is common in both the types. That first common step which is present both in aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration is glycolysis. Okay, this is glycolysis. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm itself. After glycolysis, the product formed at the end of glycolysis is pyruvate, and this pyruvate can either conduct alcoholic fermentation or it can enter into lactic acid fermentation. Got it, ma? Right? Now, here after glycolysis, the product is of course pyruvate, and this enters into the organelle mitochondria. Okay, it enters into directly mitochondrial matrix. Pyruvate directly enters where? Into the mitochondrial matrix. And in mitochondrial matrix, inside the mitochondrial matrix, three steps takes place. After glycolysis. Second step is oxidative decarboxylation. And third step is TCA cycle or Krebs cycle. Fourth step or the final step of aerobic respiration is electron transport system. That's all. This is the complete framework or flow chart that you are going to learn in the chapter respiration. Okay. So, types of respiration, if you see, we have two types of respiration, ma. One is based on respiratory substrates. It can be floating respiration or protoplasmic respiration. Floating respiration, where the respiratory substrates can be carbohydrates and lipids. Protoplasmic respiration, where the respiratory substrate can be proteins. And now, based on the presence or absence of oxygen, it can be anaerobic respiration or aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration takes place completely in the cytoplasm, where glycolysis is common pathway occurs both in the anaerobic and aerobic respiration. After glycolysis, the product formed is what? Pyruvate. This pyruvate can either enter into alcoholic fermentation or lactic acid fermentation. It depends on the type of cell it is operated. Next, here if you see pyruvate in aerobic respiration, it directly enters into the mitochondrial matrix, and then second step happens here is oxidative decarboxylation, TCA cycle, and final step is ETS. Here in anaerobic respiration, incomplete oxidation of biomacromolecules takes place, whereas in aerobic respiration, complete oxidation of biomolecules happen. Okay, in aerobic respiration, complete oxidation of biomacromolecules occur in aerobic respiration. In anaerobic respiration, incomplete oxidation occurs. Incomplete oxidation. Got it? Clear till here? And now, today we are going to learn in detail about glycolysis. Okay, let's get started with the concept glycolysis. Yeah. Very important, ma. From glycolysis, in every alternate year in the NEET examination, there will be a question. Every alternate year, there will be a question. Glycolysis is also addressed as EMP pathway. It is also known as EMP pathway, which is named after three scientists. Those are Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas. Okay, EMP pathway named after three scientists, Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas. Okay, so here this step begins with what? Glucose. Glucose, when enters into the cytoplasm, the first step which occurs here is, the very first step is what, ma? Phosphorylation. Phosphorylation, where glucose has 6 carbons, right? At 6th carbon of glucose, phosphate group is added from ATP, which is present in the cytoplasm. Okay, so from ATP, which is present in the cytoplasm, phosphate group is added to the 6th carbon of glucose, and this step is addressed as what? Phosphorylation. It is catalyzed by hexokinase or glucokinase. Hexokinase or glucokinase. Second step is isomerization, where glucose 6-phosphate is isomerized to fructose 6-phosphate, where the number of carbons are same, just functional group varies. Okay, so second step is what, ma? Isomerization. So at first step here, one ATP molecule is required for the first step. Second step, isomerization, there is no energy requirement for glucose 6-phosphate to isomerize to fructose 6-phosphate. But then from glucose 6-phosphate to fructose 6-phosphate, the enzyme which is catalyzing is phosphohexoisomerase. Got it, ma? Now, fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Here again phosphorylation takes place because phosphate group is added to the first carbon again. Phosphate group is added to the first carbon. Here ATP, from ATP only phosphate group is taken and added to the first carbon. So the third step is again phosphorylation. Third step is phosphorylation again. So here the enzyme which is required is phosphofructokinase, which is known as pacemaker enzyme. Pacemaker enzyme. Why is it known as pacemaker enzyme is how fast glycolysis have to take place, or the accuracy of glycolysis is decided by this one enzyme, that is phosphofructokinase. Now, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, which is 6 carbon, is cleaved to 3 carbons, that is one one molecule is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, second is dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Okay, one is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and second is dihydroxyacetone phosphate. So the fourth step is known as cleavage, which is catalyzed by the enzyme aldolase. Okay, clear ma till here? Now, fifth step, if you observe, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, which is 3 carbon, it can be isomerized with another 3 carbon, that is dihydroxyacetone phosphate. So the fifth step is what ma? Fifth step is isomerization. Fifth step is isomerization, catalyzed by the enzyme glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate isomerase enzyme. Okay. So now glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will continue the next 5 steps. First 5 steps are addressed as that is the phosphorylation, isomerization, third step again phosphorylation. For first step and third step, it requires 2 ATP molecules. Here 1 ATP molecule is required and here also 1 ATP molecule is required. And fourth step cleavage, fifth is isomerization. And from till these, the first 5 steps, as energy is being utilized, these first 5 steps are addressed as energy activation phase. Activation phase. In the next 5 steps of glycolysis, energy is produced, energy activation or energy requirement phase. First 5 steps are. Next 5 steps where energy is being liberated out or produced out, this next 5 steps are known as payoff phase. Payoff phase. Okay. So here if you see 6th step, how it happens from 6th step is one molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will continue with these 5 steps, and once pyruvic acid is formed, DHAP will be isomerized to G3P and this will continue the next 5 steps. So G3P will continue with the 5 steps, then DHAP will again get isomerized to G3P and this will continue the next 5 steps. Got it ma? This is in payoff phase. So here first glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will be turned to 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid and this is catalyzed by the enzyme glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. And this step is known as dephosphorylation. This step is again phosphorylation step only, I will tell you. Phosphorylation. So here glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, at first carbon one more phosphate group is added. So this is 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid or 2-triose bisphosphate. Here NAD plus is reduced to NADH plus H plus. Okay, NADH is reduced to NADH plus H plus. Got it ma? NAD plus is reduced to NADH plus H plus, where these protons are being taken from the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. H plus is taken from glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So the removal of H plus or protons is known as oxidation. Please correct this. This is oxidation. 6th step is oxidation, where removal of protons happen from G3P. H plus is being added to NAD plus to form NADH plus H plus. Got it? So G3P got reduced to got oxidized to 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid. NAD plus is reduced. Very important to remember, NAD plus is reduced to NADH plus H plus and G3P is oxidized to 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid. And now here at 7th step again phosphorylation takes place. Phosphorylation again occurs at the 7th step. So, if you clearly observe the 7th step where phosphate group is consumed from the substrate itself, that is from 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid, from this substrate itself phosphate group is taken and ADP is phosphorylated to ATP in the cytoplasm. So, the 7th step is what ma? Phosphorylation, where ATP is formed. Got it right? Where ATP is formed from 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid. So, this is also known as substrate level phosphorylation. This is also known as substrate level phosphorylation. And then 3-phosphoglyceric acid is formed. Okay. So, this step is catalyzed by phosphoglycerokinase. Phosphoglycerokinase. Next, 3-phosphoglyceric acid turn to 2-phosphoglycerate and this step is catalyzed by phosphoglyceromutase, phosphoglycerate mutase. Okay. 2-phosphoglycerate is dehydrolyzed where water molecule is being removed and this is catalyzed by the enzyme enolase and this forms phosphoenol pyruvate. Okay, this forms what? Phosphoenol pyruvate. And the last step, that from phosphoenol pyruvate again from the substrate itself the phosphate group is taken and ATP is formed, which is again substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, and this is catalyzed by pyruvate kinase. This is catalyzed by pyruvate kinase and at the end pyruvic acid is formed. Okay, this forms pyruvic acid at last. Okay. So, in the next 5 steps if you take, at 7th step one ATP molecule is released. Okay, and at 10th step one ATP molecule is released. But from here we should not count it as 1 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate because for 1 glucose 2 G3P will come into picture because DHAP will again turn to G3P and it operates the next 5 steps, right. So, we have to count it as 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate molecules. When it is 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, from the oxidation step 2 NADH are released into the cytoplasm. From 7th step 2 ATP are released and from 10th step 2 ATP are released. Okay. So, this is the complete process of glycolysis. As of now it will be very new to you, okay, but then go through the substrates properly, go through the enzymes and steps keenly. It will take 3 to 4 revisions to remember all the concepts in detail. At the end, bioenergetics of glycolysis is very important, that we will discuss when we are discussing in detail about aerobic respiration. So, for today that is all with the class. What did we learn ma? Today from respiration in plants, what are the concepts of this chapter? Second thing on respiration, cellular energy we have learnt. Later we have looked into the types of respiration and then we have also observed on how respiration takes place in a plant cell, animal cell, in a prokaryotic cell or in unicellular organisms, be it aerobic or anaerobic respiration. We have looked properly into the complete flow chart, just a second, yeah, complete flow chart on what glycolysis is the common step and after glycolysis what are the steps of aerobic respiration and where does the steps occur in detail. And then we have completely looked into glycolysis concept. Okay. Tomorrow, based on the concept we have exercised today, what are the NEET PYQs? We will be exercising tomorrow, and then we will be moving on to the chapter plant growth and development. Thank you.